And I would like to call to order a regular meeting of the Board of Retirement. It is Wednesday, September 1st, 2021. It is 9:00 a.m. on the dot. And Bonnie, if you would read the usual announcements and take roll call, please.
Thank you, Chair Bernstein. This meeting is being conducted as a virtual meeting, so I will go ahead and do a roll call of the trustees now. Mr. Pryor? Mr. Knox?
Good morning, I'm here.
Ms. Gray?
Good morning.
Mr. Santos?
Morning.
Mr. Oakham?
I'm here. Thank you. Good morning.
Thank you, Mr. Moore. I'll come back to you, Mr. Moore. Mr. Kehoe?
Present.
Mr. Robbins is not joining us today. Mr. Harris?
Present.
Ms. Zapata is not joining us today. Going back to Mr. Moore. Okay, I do see him in the meeting platform. I will connect with him after. And Chair Bernstein?
I am here.
Great. Staff participating in the meeting include the CEO, Santos Kryman, Deputy CEO, Louis Lugo, AEO, JJ Popovich, Chief Counsel, Stephen Rice, Legal Staff, Frank Boyd, CIO, John Grable, Legislative Affairs Officer, Barry Liu. Internal audit staff include Richard Bendel, Leisha Collins, Christina Logan, and George Lundy. Disability retirement staff include Tamara Caldwell, Carrie Wilson, Vicki Neely, Ricardo Salinas, and Hernan Barrientos. Division managers and staff, Ted Granger, Irvin Wu, Carly Natoya, Louis Gittins, Cassandra Smith, Kevin Hawkins, Alan Cochran, Carlos Barrios, James Beasley, Roberta Van Nortrick, Kathy Delino, and Cookie Hadania. Consultants include Don Wellington, Jenny Krangle, Jolene Williams, and Penny Campbell. Trustees, please use the Zoom chat option to be placed in the queue. At this time, we ask all meeting participants to mute their mics until you are ready to speak. And now we may proceed with the agenda.
Thank you very much, Bonnie, and congratulations on Eli starting first grade.
Thank you.
I am looking at the agenda. I'm going to ask that we pull item 6H from consent so that Mr. Rice can give us a brief update before we consider it. Are there any other items from consent that people wish to pull at this time? So without objection, we'll move item 6H to become a new item 7C, and we'll hear it under non-consent items. So moving on to the approval of the minutes, we need to approve the minutes of the regular meeting of August 4th, 2021.
So moved.
Moved. Second.
Moved by Oakham and seconded by Gray. Can we take a roll call, please?
Mr. Knox?
Aye.
Ms. Gray?
We can't hear you, Bonnie.
Can you hear me now?
No,
Yeah.
good.
Okay, great. Ms. Gray? Mr. Santos?
Who did you call?
Oh, sorry. Let me take off this headset.
I'll go ahead and do it. So Mr. Santos, Mr. Oakham,
Aye.
Mr. Moore,
Aye.
Mr. Kehoe,
Aye.
Mr. Harris,
Aye.
Ms. Zapanta,
Not here.
thank you, and Mr. Bernstein.
Aye.
Okay, the motion passes unanimously.
And now we are on to be approving the minutes of the regular meeting of August 12th, 2021.
Okay,
So moved. No, I
I'll
thought
go
we
ahead
did. We did that. Oh,
That was for a motion for the 4th only. I didn't, it was not for the 12th. So let's just do the 12th separately. Mr.
okay.
Oakham made the motion
Second.
Yep.
and Mr. Kehoe seconded it. Linda, can you take a roll call, please?
Mr. Pryor. Actually, I don't call Mr. Pryor. Mr. Knox,
Aye.
Ms. Gray,
Yes.
Mr. Santos,
Yes.
Mr. Oakham,
Aye.
Mr. Moore,
Aye.
Mr. Kehoe,
Aye.
Mr. Harris,
Aye.
and Chair Bernstein.
Aye.
Okay, the motion passes unanimously.
Okay. And Mr. Moore, I am distracted by your adorable guest. You faded away for a moment, but I'm enjoying the distraction a great deal. We are on to public comment. I'm not aware of any slips from the public.
We have not received any requests from the public to speak.
Thank you very much. We are on to item 4, other communications, starting with our July 2021 All-Stars. JJ.
Thank you very much, Chair Bernstein, and good morning, trustees. This is the time of month when we recognize those folks that have gone above and beyond and help their fellow staff members and our members. And so Their pictures are there for everybody to see. The winners for this month are Indy Brooke, Courtney Cook, Joe Aguilar, and Sami Vaughn. And we have no web watchers, but we do have a rideshare winner. So that is Linda Ronquillo. Thank you very much for everything that you guys do. You are very much appreciated.
Thank you very much. We now have a CEO report. There is a memo dated August 20th. And Mr. Kryman, welcome.
Yes. Welcome. Good morning, Chair Bernstein and trustees. We had a pretty extensive CEO report that I'm going to ask Mr. Lugo to comment on in terms of our update on our COVID efforts. But before that, I wanted to make sure that I announced that the that the voting window for the election of the third member of the Board of Investments and the third member of the Board of Retirement has closed yesterday. The election vendor is now in the process of tallying the votes. We anticipate that they will certify their portion of the election results by September 8th. There'll be a short 1-week period for any protests that may be filed. And then, of course, ultimately, the Board of Supervisors are expected to certify the election results on October 19th at their regularly scheduled meeting. So I wanted to make sure that I kept you apprised of the election, the different steps, and I will continue to keep you apprised as things evolve. So with that, I did want to say that we've been doing a great deal of work in preparing the organization for the return to the office, which is slated for the first part of October. There's been a lot of activity in terms of trying to get the organization ready, trying to get the testing protocols in place. And I would like Mr. Lugo, who's responsible for that particular effort, to provide just a brief comment on where he is with trying to gather all of those pieces together and put that puzzle together. So Louis, if you don't mind, share if that's okay with you, Mr. Bernstein, Chair Bernstein.
Please, Mr. Lugo.
Okay, great. Thank you, Santos. Good morning, Chair Bernstein. Good morning, trustees. Just a brief update in terms of our COVID-19 implementation plan. As Santos mentioned, we are on track for October 1st. We did bring to the board a month ago that we did have a survey that was conducted with our staff, and just wanted to provide some high-level information as a result of the survey. 89% of our staff responded to the survey. The 11%, our HR department is reaching out to those individuals to make sure that we get a response on their vaccination status. Of those that responded, 74% of our staff did respond that they were vaccinated. We're working with the union. We did have a productive meeting on Monday with our labor partners regarding our implementation plan, specifically as it relates to our testing protocols, as well as any non-compliance should we run into those issues. As Santos mentioned, we are working diligently on our testing protocols. As you saw with the County of LA, they are in contract with Fulgent. We're looking at either commercial or internal options. As you can imagine, a lot of public and private entities and employers are using testing as a modality to return staff into the office. So the demand is high. So we're working through our options in terms of what LACERA can implement by October 1st. We want to be purposeful. So if we don't have all of our testing logistics outlined and in place within a couple of weeks from October 1st, there may be a delay in having our staff return to the office, and we'll definitely keep the board apprised if that date does shift. That doesn't change the date of vaccination requirement. We still are on track to ensure that our staff have vaccinations, have the mandatory vaccination by October 1st. The other item just briefly wanted to mention is just we are going to be onboarding a new AEO for administration, Laura Gigliemo. She comes to us from the, I'm going to get this right, Palo Verdes Estates. She's a city manager at Palo Verde, or was a city manager at Palo Verdes Estates, and also has an extensive career within the city of Los Angeles. So we're looking forward to Laura starting with us on September 13th. And the board being able to meet her at our next board session. So with that, stand for any questions. Otherwise, I'll kick it back to Chair Bernstein.
I do have a question, Mr. Bernstein, whenever you're ready.
Please, Mr. Santos.
Thank you for that, Mr. Lugo. I'm pretty sure you're probably familiar. The county is in negotiations with the different unions. One of the interesting, to me anyway, one of the interesting aspects of what the county intends to implement is the discipline for those employees who refuse to comply and do not have a valid exemption, either religious or medical. And so what they are proposing is that they're going to suspend an individual for 5 days and allow that individual to come back with proof of vaccination. And if the individual fails to provide the vaccination at the end of the 5 day suspension, then they move for discharge. So that's pretty interesting to see what the county is doing. I'm part of a coalition of unions, not the typical CCU, but this is a different one with the DAs and child support, mostly lawyers. There was really not that much push from many of the unions in terms of the way the county intends to implement that. So that's just a comment for your information. I'm sure you're probably aware of that. They do have these different forms that we reviewed yesterday extensively in terms of the forms required for exemptions and the criteria with regards to the biggest one is the biggest challenge that we have in the county is the religious exemption. And how can one justify that? So it's kind of interesting. And if you haven't looked at it, I will strongly suggest you look at it. And one other comment, Mr. Bernstein, if you don't mind, is that with regards to Mr. Kryman, with regards to the election, thank you for that information. But I'm astonished to see how very few people voted. I mean, the last update that I received, it was August 26th. It was less than 5,000 people voted. That is, if the purpose for us voting electronically was to increase participation, this is a total failure. So, I mean, of course, the last information I got is August 26th, but I hardly doubt it. Typically, we get anywhere from 8,000 to 9,000 votes. I doubted that from August 26th to yesterday, that another 4,000 people voted. So just want to throw that out there for you. I don't know, perhaps we should have done another reminder. I know you issue, I believe it was 2 reminders, if I remember correctly, the original notice, and there was another reminder. I know the different unions did the same thing, but it's just, again, I'm just blown away that so few people voted.
Yeah, we intend on having a discussion with the executive office about the results and the participation to determine whether or not we need to go back to mail ballots, quite frankly. And so that discussion is definitely on the table moving forward. If you recall the last election, we sent a pretty strongly worded memo to the executive office requesting that they do some sort of a dual process. And so we'll take a look at the results, we'll compare them to the past, and then we'll move forward from there. And we'll report back to this board on any discussions or any changes that may result. We were told that this particular election would be a lot better. We would have more participation because of the communication protocols that they had in place, and so now we have some facts that we can point to determine whether or not it was a failure, or whether or not it worked properly or not. So we're just as concerned as you are in terms of the participation of our members.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Santos. Are there any other questions or comments before we move on?
I had a.
Oh,
quick one,
Mr.
Chair.
Knox, you're in the queue. Go ahead.
Yeah, no problem. Following up on Mr. Santos's point, I was one of the 5,000 and found it very easy to vote. If you're doing some outreach, I think I would suggest outreaching to the departments rather than just focusing solely on the process with the executive office. I think part of it is, and I remember in past years, we would see flyers for the various candidates that were running. I'm guessing that's probably, been impacted by COVID. There's less people in the building. I just think there's just so little awareness of what trustees do, so little understanding of what LACERA is beyond a chart that shows the number of years and how old I am and what percent I can get at what point. I think the marketing needs to be looked at, with candidate statements or links to a video statement by the candidates or something like that, just to try and pump up the awareness. It's a zero, I think, in terms of what's on the radar for most people. Just my perspective here in the Hall of Admin.
So I'm not a county employee, but coincidentally, I'm an Emmy voter, and we just finished a voting cycle too. And I would just note there was a lot of email prompting if you hadn't cast your votes to vote. So I appreciate Mr. Santos's concern and his request for information, and wonder about how robust the system is for reminding people to vote, drawing out people. Obviously, when people aren't physically in an office, it's going to be hard to use the office to remind them of the election. But I value our general members greatly. I care who gets here. I have a bias that I hope the people who are here stay, but I would love to learn more as well.
It was really interesting, if I may really quick, Mr. Chairman. There was 50,000 mailers that went out to the voters' homes at the very beginning of the election. With the flyers that you referred to, Mr. Knox, they were mailed to people's homes. In addition to that, we did emails, reminders. I know the Public Defenders Union did 3 email reminders. Yeah, it will be interesting to do an analysis at some point in the future to determine what can be changed to improve. Thank you.
Well, Mr. Cryman, thank you for that report. We will move on now to disability retirement applications on consent calendar. Item 5. I have a number. So we will first start with safety SCD, law enforcement, sheriff's DA, and investigator SCD applications. Applications numbers 527D through 539D.
I'll move it.
Second.
Moved by Kehoe, seconded by Oakham. Roll call, please.
Mr. Knox?
Aye.
Ms. Gray?
Yes.
Mr. Santos?
Aye.
Mr. Oakham?
Aye.
Mr. Moore?
Yes.
Mr. Keough?
Aye.
Mr. Harris?
Aye.
Chair Bernstein?
Aye.
The motion passes unanimously.
Thank you. Now we have safety applications for SCD for fire and lifeguards, applications numbers 1389B through 1397B.
Move it.
I'll second.
Second.
Moved by Oakham, seconded by Santos. Roll call, please.
Mr. Knox?
Aye.
Ms. Gray?
Aye.
Mr. Santos?
Yes.
Mr. Oakham?
Aye.
Mr. Moore?
Yes.
Mr. Keough?
Aye.
Mr. Harris?
Aye.
Chair Bernstein?
Aye.
The motion passes unanimously.
Thank you very much. We are now on to applications for SCD from general members. That's applications 2265C through 2276C.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Gray, seconded by Oakham. Roll call, please.
Mr. Knox?
Aye.
Ms. Gray?
Yes.
Mr. Santos?
Aye.
Mr. Oakham?
Aye.
Mr. Moore?
Yes.
Mr. Harris?
Aye.
Mr. Kehough?
Aye.
Chair Bernstein?
Aye.
The motion passes unanimously.
Thank you. And finally, we have one general member NSCD consent application 4407.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Gray, seconded by Oakham. Roll call, please.
Mr. Knox,
Aye.
Ms. Gray,
Yes.
Mr. Santos,
Yes.
Mr. Oakham,
Aye.
Mr. Moore,
Yes.
Mr. Kehoe,
Aye.
Mr. Lovett, Mr. Harris,
Aye.
Chair Bernstein.
Aye.
The motion passes unanimously.
Thank you. We will come back to the non-consent applications later in the meeting. We are now on to item 6 on the agenda, consent items. Again, I've pulled H, but I would be happy to entertain one motion to move 6A through 6G.
So
Keith,
moved.
I'll move. I'll second.
Moved by Oakham, seconded by Knox. Roll call, please.
Mr. Knox,
Aye.
Ms. Gray,
Yes.
Mr. Santos,
Yes.
Mr. Oakham,
Aye.
Mr. Moore,
Aye.
Mr. Kehoe,
Aye.
Mr. Harris,
Aye.
Chair Bernstein.
Aye.
The motion passes unanimously.
Thank you very much. We are now on to onto non-consent item 7. Our first is item A, a recommendation to adopt a watch position on Assembly Bill 826. And Barry, I think you wanted to offer some information or make a comment.
Mr. Bernstein, did you want to go to item H, the teleconference policy?
I actually made that 7C on the agenda, so we will be coming up
Perfect.
on that
Got it.
shortly.
Okay. Thank you.
Yes, good morning. Thank you, Chair Bernstein and trustees. I want to give you an update on AB 826. Just last night, the bill was amended. So the structure of the bill is pretty much what you have in the memo, but there were 3 main changes to it. One is that it's been amended to apply to Ventura County only. And then 2, instead of discussing all remuneration, it does specify flexible benefit allowances. And then 3 is for any tiered flexible benefits, it restricts comp burnable to the lowest tiered amount. So just want to provide an update as far as what recently occurred with the bill.
Thank you very much.
Question.
Mr. Santos?
So your recommendation is for us to support it, or what was your recommendation, Mr. Luke?
Oh, yes, thank you, Mr. Santos. Sorry about that. Yes, I would, since it's been amended to apply to Ventura County only, I would recommend that the board watch the bill.
So that is the current recommendation. You're not recommending it. You're not recommending a change.
No, and I think that the fact that it's been amended to apply to Ventura County only is, I think, stronger support for having a watch position.
Okay. I will need a motion from somebody for that or something else.
I'll move it. I'll second.
Moved by Kehoe, seconded by Harris. Bonnie, can we get a roll call, please?
Mr. Knox,
Aye.
Ms. Gray,
Yes.
Mr. Santos,
No.
Mr. Oakham,
Aye.
Mr. Moore,
Aye.
Mr. Kehoe,
Aye.
Mr. Harris,
Aye.
Chair Bernstein.
Aye.
The motion passes with 7 yeses and 1 no.
Thank you very much. We are now on to item 7B, a recommendation submitted by JJ Popovich, our Assistant EO, that the board authorize staff to engage in contract with SDI Presence for consulting services at a cost not to exceed $200,000. There's a memo dated August 17th. JJ, did you want to speak or?
I'm here if there's any questions. We went through an RFP process. SDI Presence came back as the strongest bidder for a number of reasons. Strongest because they presented us a really well-rounded plan for going through a process of evaluating our current budget process, helping us modernize and update it, and then a very sound selection process for generating an RFP for the actual budget software. So their recommendations came back very positive as well. And we feel that they're the consultant that will help us move this project forward. It's a long needed project. We haven't updated our budget process in a long time. It's very manual, very time consuming. Even generating the types of reports that we'd like to be able to look at from a management and from trustee perspective is a laborious process. So this is long overdue.
I'll move the recommendation.
I have a question.
Okay, so it's been moved by JP. Before I call on you, Mr. Oakham, has somebody seconded it?
I did. Santos.
Okay, seconded by Santos. Mr. Oakham.
Yeah, the only question I have, JJ, is the software included in the 200,000 or just for services?
This is just for services for us to go through an entire process to look at the whole entire budget process, bring in a new design process that fits our current need, best practices, then have the vendor help us draft an RFP to get what we need from an actual software vendor. And they'll actually go through the process of selecting that vendor with us. And finally, they'll help us oversee the implementation of the new software.
Why would they have to oversee? Wouldn't the software company who designed it oversee the implementation of the software rather than a provider? I mean, why would we need to spend? That seems like a lot of money to me, to find a software that will, benefit us and help us do what we want to accomplish.
The bulk of well, to answer the first question first, our budget unit consists of one staff member and one temporary staff member at this time. So there's limited resources. We will be in the middle of the budget process. We're heading into the mid-year budget process right now. And then we'll be in the middle of the budget process for the next fiscal year. And so staff's not going to have a whole lot of time to be able to shepherd this through. The portion of the time where they're going to help us oversee the implementation of it, it's a smaller responsibility on the consultant side. You're right, the vendor will do the majority of that, but there will be a lot of interaction here on our side that the staff just isn't there to be able to provide the oversight we think that it's going to need to make sure we get what we need, including all development of the training and everything. So we felt that if we had somebody to be there to help guide us through the entire process, given our staffing situation, it would be beneficial for us to get the software that we need implemented correctly the first time without any hiccups.
What do they think the software is going to cost?
I am not 100% sure on that.
Approximately.
The software is probably going to cost somewhere between 75 and 150,000, I would imagine.
Okay. All right. I still think 200 grand is a lot of money for looking for software and then helping us implement it and go through. I mean, it would almost be a better idea to send an RFP to software companies to come in and evaluate what we need, what our needs are, and then they can tell us that because they're specifically in that business. But you know better than I, JJ. I just my thought process.
Sure. I can tell you why we didn't do that. We did initially think about doing it that way, but then each software company is very biased and focused on their own product. And we really wanted to make sure that we got the best product that would fit for us. And so that's why we went with a consultant. And plus,
we have an outstanding IT division. Couldn't they help with that? With determining what software would work best. Okay, and then the software. I don't know. I know they're probably busy. I know that's what you're going to say, Santo.
Oh, go ahead.
No, go on, JJ.
I was going to comment on that in this respect. We don't have budget experts. And we really want to make sure that the budget process and the type of budget that we put in place is up to modern standards. And we just don't have that expertise on our staff.
Okay.
We have staff that are really has a lot of experience in doing things the way that we've always done it. But we really want to make sure that we're capturing the best of the best for today so that we're setting ourselves up for a positive future in that area.
Yeah, and can I just add that the budget system is, it has to interface with a lot of our business units as well. So for example, one of the things that I asked staff to include was the interface that we're going to have with our fiscal side of the shop as well, which is different than budget. And also our human resources needs to be involved in that discussion. Our IT folks are very capable, but yes, Mr. Oakham, they are stretched pretty thin. We're in the middle of implementing or trying to implement the case management system that takes up a great deal of time. And so there's a lot of moving parts, and we just felt that contracting with this particular vendor would assist us with making sure that we're getting the product that we're going to need, because this is really it's probably a 15 to 20 year, 25-year investment. And we want to make sure that upfront we get everything exactly the way we would like to see it, and then leverage their experiences in terms of how they see the budget system evolving to adapt to our particular business needs. And so it's not, it would be great if we could just get it off the shelf and modify an existing system, but we want to make sure that it's going to be a system that's going to be viable for us for the next 15, 20, 25 years, quite frankly.
I don't disagree with that. We did an RFP, I think JJ said, is that correct? And how many responses did we get?
I believe we had 5 or 6 responses.
Yes.
The top 3 finalists were very impressive. One of the top 3 finalists we had to take out of consideration for conflict of interest rules, but it was a good field, and we were pleased with the responses that we received.
The prices were about the same, roughly?
They are pretty close in the range.
Okay.
I have a question from Mr. Kehoe.
Thank you. The question is now turned more into a comment, but I'm in support of the motion and the staff's request of a budget solution. We're talking about $100 million budget and $200,000 to look into a solution that is going to last for 10, 15, 20 years is, I think, very important. So I'm in support. But what I am concerned about, and where the hairs on the back of my neck rose, and I hope that every single trustee's hairs on the back of their neck rose, is when I hear from staff that there's concerns about limited resources on their internal budget and limited expertise on those issues. And I am assuming that was a misspoke and not exactly entirely true, because if it is true, then our board should probably take action on maybe hiring our own consultant to review our own budget process and report directly to this board on that, because we're $100 million budget. And if there's concerns about staff being able to handle that, then all of us trustees should be concerned about that. So I think Mr. Kryman should comment on that and provide some insight. But ultimately, if there's a staff issue, then a software solution is not going to be the solution. I don't think that's the case, but I just highlight that as a concern as we hear comments about only having 2 staff members managing a $100 million budget.
So let Chair Bernstein, if it's, we do have challenges in terms of us managing our budget, and we are very proficient at using the systems that we have in place. We have to evolve from where we are, which is a very manually intensive budget process that has very little interface with other areas of the business. And so this consultant will assist us with developing those criteria that we're going to need in order to develop a budget that's going to work better for us. We have reporting requirements that just take too long. I don't think it's a matter of us not having talented people working on the budget. I think it's just a matter of we don't have enough of them, which we're going to address as part of our recruitment process. We tried to hire a budget officer. The individual that we offered the job decided to withdraw their name. And so we went back to square one. So we have had some challenges, Mr. Trustee Kehoe. I don't think that a separate review by the trustees would be something that I would be in support of. I think that with this consultant and with the new AEO over administration coming on board, I know that she has ideas and she has a lot of expertise on the budget side that will help tremendously, quite frankly. And when she does come on board, that this is going to be her particular project that she's going to have to take from cradle to grave, quite frankly. And so I would encourage approval of this particular motion and this consultant so that we can move forward. And I don't want you to feel or to go to sleep worried about us managing the budget, because we can do that with the existing resource that we have. They've been doing it. We've been doing it for many, many years. And so we just want to improve the process by leaps and bounds. And so that's the goal. And I know that our IT folks are also in support of this as well. They're going to play a critical role in terms of managing the software once it gets implemented and making sure that they provide the ample support that's needed. There are times when we do have to look to other members of our team in other areas of the business to assist us with preparing budget reports and doing other things, but it's well in hand. We have a good handle on the existing process. We just need to move forward on it. So that would be my recommendation, to approve this and allow us to work through these particular issues. Thank you, Chair Bernstein.
Mr. Kehoe, any further comments?
No, I think I'm in support of letting them proceed, seeing how our new AEO takes the project, and giving them time to get this in order.
Okay.
Thank you.
Mr. Moore, I have you in the queue.
Yes, I want to support the recommendation of the staff, and I think this is a worthwhile and meaningful approach to developing our budget system so that there is a way to collect budget information, a way to review it, a way to interface with the accounting system so that we could do budget performance reporting. And I think getting a consultant, outside person to come in and do that survey of what we have in place and help us specify what we need to purchase in the future that will accomplish those data collection, analysis, and reporting goals is the way to go. And I've done this in my career 2 different times, and both times we used an outside consultant to come in and help us identify processes and procedures internally, and how we can identify the software programs and the hardware that we needed to upgrade and improve our system. And I'm glad Mr. Kryman brought up Lori Guglielmo's name here, because I in fact worked with her at the City of Los Angeles when she was in the Chief Administrative Officer's office, and she was a senior budget staff person. So I think we're going to be in good hands with this project, and I'm sure that if you're around 4 or 5 years from now, you're going to see a quite improved way that we collect information, develop, and report on our budget.
Thank you very much. Mr. Knox.
I'm in support as well. I guess my suggestion would be if we could get feedback once they've talked about how we can improve our budgeting process, how you can improve the budgeting process. I would like to hear some of that feedback rather than wait till we have the software, wait till we have, oh, here's the new budget. Remember, we told you we were going to redesign stuff. It would be nice to get feedback. And I think that speaks to Mr. Kehoe's point, just to see if they, wow, you guys are way out of control with your budgeting, or no, you're almost there. I would like to know some of that when that information becomes available and when you can package it for us.
We will be more than happy to do that. We'll definitely be working very closely with the OOC committee moving forward with that.
Perfect. Thank you.
Thank you.
Then I think we are ready to take a vote. Bonnie?
Mr. Knox, aye.
Linda, are you available to take the vote for us?
Yes, I'm here. Okay, so here we go.
The motion is to support staff recommendation, and if you could take the vote, that would be great.
Mr. Knox,
Aye.
Ms. Gray,
Aye.
Mr. Santos, Mr. Santos.
Aye.
Thank you. Mr. Oakham,
Aye.
Mr. Moore,
Aye.
Mr. Kehoe,
Aye.
Mr. Harris, Mr. Harris.
Aye.
Okay, and Chair Bernstein.
Aye.
Okay, the motion passes. I always want to say the chair passes unanimously. The motion passes unanimously.
Thank you very much, Linda.
You're welcome.
We are now on to item 7C, which was 6H before it was pulled from consent. This is a recommendation submitted by Mr. Kehoe, the UC chair, that the board review and consider for approval the revised teleconference meeting policy with a memo dated August 17th. Our general counsel, Mr. Rice, had a Sacramento update to offer us before we consider the item.
Yes, thank you and good morning, Chair Bernstein and trustees. I did want to give an update on developments we've learned yesterday about things that have happened this week up in Sacramento concerning the issue of relaxation of teleconference rules. Two updates. First, with respect to whether the governor is likely to extend his executive order relaxing the rules, our legislative advocate Joe Ackler advises us not to expect that he will do that. However, the second item is that one of the pending bills, AB 361, that does continue relaxation of teleconference rules has this week been amended to include an urgency provision, which would make it effective immediately upon approval by the legislature and then signature by the governor. Our legislative advocate, Mr. Ackler, does believe that this bill has support. It's already been through the Assembly. It's now in the Senate. The amendment originated in the Senate, so there's a legislative process that'll have to take place there, but it can take place quickly. And the expectation is that if the bill gets to the governor's desk, he will sign it. So we would have legislative authority as well as our teleconference policy to rely on to continue teleconferences when needed. The bill does allow teleconferences during states of emergency. It imposes some additional requirements related to public comment. It requires an affirmative finding by the local agency board, which would be in this case this board for its meetings, and the bottom line is that the technical requirements of the Brown Act under this bill would continue to be relaxed during periods of emergency. These updates do not require any changes to the policy that was recommended by the Operations Oversight Committee, but the legislative status was discussed with the OOC, and so I wanted to update the board as well before you voted.
And I think that was prudent. Thank you for bringing that to us, Mr. Rice.
I'll make the motion to adopt the OOC's recommended changes.
I'll second.
Moved by Kehoe, Santos just in ahead of Harris on the second. Is there any discussion before we vote? Bonnie, are you back to take the roll call?
Hopefully I am. Mr.
We
Knox?
hope so too.
Aye.
Ms. Gray?
Yes.
Mr. Santos?
Yes.
Mr. Oakham?
Aye.
Mr. Moore?
Aye.
Mr. Kehoe?
Aye.
Mr. Harris?
Aye.
Chair Bernstein?
Aye.
The motion passes unanimously.
Great. We are now done with non-consent items. We're on to item 8A, a report for discussion purposes. This is an item that was submitted by myself and Mr. Knox, the chair of the BOI. I'm happy to introduce it, and then if staff has comments, It's meant to be a discussion item. And frankly, and to give full credit, Mr. Knox really came up with this idea, which is to consider moving away from what we have for leadership, which is frankly a semi-competitive election system, and moving more to a rotational system. There is a memo. We did meet the chairs and the vice chairs to discuss it and to not push up against Brown Act considerations. And the general response was uniformly favorable from Ms. Gray, myself, Mr. Knox, and Mr. Kelly on the BOI side. There are a variety of options. We made a deliberate decision not to edit the options so that you all would have all the information to consider and discuss anything you wanted. Our preference among all four of us, I believe, and three of them us are here, so if I get it wrong, please correct me, was a rotational system based largely on seniority. So that I believe in the memo is largely option 3. There was option 1.
No, I was just gonna say, that was my second preference. My first was just go by seat number.
And thank you for correcting me. The seat number has some complications in that appointeds change seats over terms, but I don't mean to shortchange anything. And obviously, we've also left the nominating committee. There's the option of not making any changes. The BOI will be considering this item next week. And if there's a general favorable response from both boards, we will probably have staff draft something more adaptable to bring back in front of a scheduled joint meeting next month in October. Mr. Knox, did I leave anything off, or Ms. Gray, anything off that you think should be brought up?
No, I don't believe so. I think we were trying to come up with something that wasn't too challenging for folks to follow, but was clear going into the fall and winter of every year.
Okay.
I would just say that we really had a very robust discussion. We tried to consider all the various options or what ifs, and I think that eventually in October, you'll have a clear picture of what we could and could not do, combined with some what ifs.
I have comments coming in and I want to turn it over for discussion. One thing that I left off that I think is important, the proposed system or systems would not mandate leadership. It offers leadership based on seniority. But for those of you, and maybe everyone familiar with the international travel system, it's sort of akin to the travel list. You move up over time. It doesn't mandate you to take anything, but it affords people the opportunity each year to consider whether they would like to use their seniority to lead. And if they choose not to, that's a personal choice. I have Mr. Kehoe in the queue, and if people wish to discuss or ask questions, why don't you throw yourself into the queue?
I just want to say thank you to everyone involved in this discussion. I didn't anticipate this to be put together, but having looked at it and read all the options, I really like the direction that we're going with this, and I'm very much in support of having a more structured approach to board leadership. And I'll just say from my own perspective, looking over all the options, option 3 was the one that I was in support of, and I remain in support of. So I know that we're not here deciding, but I just wanted to throw that out there. I think option 3 gives the opportunity for those who have tenure to be able to have leadership roles if they want, but also to choose to pass but step in if they want to at a later time. I like the analogy of the international travel. I think that's a good analogy, and it ultimately rewards people for being there for a long time, but doesn't require people to step into leadership roles if they don't want to. And just from my perspective as a elected trustee, it's always nice to try and be in a chair seat during election periods. So that would allow you to be able to plan ahead a little bit and say, hey, you know what, I'm not going to be chair until this year or whatever. That's my own personal comments on it. But in any case, I'll leave it at that. I really appreciate all of you bringing this to us, and I'm in support of option 3 if we go down this path.
I'm Mr. Bernstein.
Mr. Harris.
I just have a quick question because obviously I'm not in this queue as far as being able to be a board chair, vice chair, secretary. I'm just looking at the seniority thing, though. I just want to make sure I'm clear. The seniority, is that consecutive seniority? Because I am a retread and I have 2 years and 3 months of prior board experience. It doesn't seem to be reflected in that particular number. I just wondering if that was how it was compiled.
I will do my, so first of all, it hasn't been drafted, but I can tell you where we're headed, but obviously, again, based on what people wish to support. The idea would be that you gain seniority for service and that alternates would gain years, although they couldn't probably use them while they were alternates. But when you return, you keep your years, which is also very important for appointeds who regularly will term off for a year. But also there are examples, Mr. Robbins, who's not here today, is the most obvious example of somebody who has served in literally different arrival mechanisms. And the idea here, look, the idea is to just make this a very fair system, to just reward seniority and to not overly evaluate what seniority looks like. That was sort of the chair and the vice chair's goal as I understood it. So does that answer your question?
Oh, no, I mean, I didn't really have a question other than, and I agree with everything you said. I'm fine with that. It's just that I have some prior service that doesn't seem to be notated here in this seniority list. So
and I think the goal would be to capture that.
I have 2 years and 3 months additional time that is not reflected in my seniority time.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Mr. Knox.
Yeah, and just to clarify, the only one that we would exempt from what you're talking about, Mr. Harris, would be my alternate, because my alternate does not attend on a regular basis. So I didn't think it would be fair / appropriate to account for their time the same way as you would as an alternate.
Makes total sense. Total
But
sense.
if the TTC is acting or permanently appointed, so I was acting for 6 months, then I would get that 6 months because I am the only person attending. Yeah,
totally understood.
I have Mr. Oakham and then Mr. Santos.
Yeah, I've got a question. Does the nominating committee have to follow? I mean, we haven't concluded. We'll do this in October, but let me say this. I agree with Sean. I like this concept because it's going to take the politics out of the chairmanship, and it'll give everybody an opportunity. I think it's very good. Or if somebody feels they don't want to do that, then they don't have to step in and do that. So I agree with Sean that you guys have come up with a good solution. And, you know, one of the things I'm going to say, Alan, and the two of you and Keith, the fairness that you show in being chairman, and I'm just glad this year we have the two of you as chairman, is really outstanding. And you bring a lot to the table. And I think the future of this organization is going to be better for what you're doing now and what the committee's doing. So thank you.
Well,
And
I'm
gone in 3 months, so I'm not going to be involved in this. So, but I do appreciate it.
We didn't want to edit down the staff suggestion, so we didn't eliminate the nominating committee, but our perception was a nominating committee had the potential to actually be very political. So there wasn't a great deal of enthusiasm in our earlier discussion for that. But again, we didn't want to edit the option, so that's why it remained on the memo. I have Mr. Santos in the queue next.
Yes, thank you. As the rookie trustee on this board, I agree with Mr. Kehoe in terms of the seniority. But one issue that I would like to put forward here is what about the committee makeup? Something for us to think about. I know, for example, at the time we decided to implement the different committees on the Board of Investments. One of the criteria was to try to keep the same people who are interested in a particular committee, because the individual will develop the skills in that particular, in the case of the Board of Investments, as a class. So I think it would be a good idea to also think about how the committee's makeup will be of the chairmanship, whether it's going to be on a rotation basis or we just leave it alone. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Gray?
Not to be wishy-washy, but I've reread, and I've read this a couple of times, but I reread option 3, and that is the best option. My option of the seat numbers wouldn't work, especially if you were in fact the rookie trustee. So I think option 3 is, to me, one of the best options.
Well, an outbreak of radical agreement among the trustees is never to be judged harshly. So thank you. Are there any other comments or questions?
Well, Mr. Bernstein, I would just ask that my seniority be corrected on any future documents that are produced.
I trust that staff already captured that. Again, we do need to draft.
You're right. I hadn't thought about the fact that I'm an alternate today, but that might not always be the case.
Staff, a question for you all. Are you looking for a vote here, or it sounds like the consensus here is to bring forth a more robust version of item 3, option 3, that we could consider in October for adoption?
I don't think we're looking for a vote. We have plenty of input from the board members that we'll go back and provide a more robust and more definitive steps that we need to take in order to implement this for the next election cycle.
Mr. Moore, did you have your hand up?
Yeah, I wanted to make sure that we also consider rotation. I mean, I don't have a problem with seniority because, experience has its place and it's valuable. But I also think that there should be some way to rotate between electeds and appointeds. So you don't want all of the electeds to get elected every year for 15 years and are always in the driver's seat. You want to have some appointeds who are only appointed for 6 years, typically, to not have that opportunity to chair the board and appoint committee members and have the authority to appoint ad hocs and impact policy on the board. So as you go forward and, do things to make this more palatable to everybody, that would be one of the things I would be looking at to support the effort, is making sure that there's some rotation between the chairmanship, between electeds and appointeds.
And I would, if I understand Mr. Moore's comments, which were strong, and if there's a way for staff to evaluate whether the system bringing forward does unintentionally really bias towards electeds, and if there's a way within the system of balancing that a little bit, at least an understanding of what the proposal will likely look and roll out, I think Mr. Moore's comments are likely quite accurate.
We'll look into that.
Okay. I think staff has what they need. Does anyone have any other questions or concerns that they'd like to raise before we move on? Well, again, I want to thank Mr. Knox for originating this idea, and Ms. Gray and Mr. Kelly for helping to flesh it out, and staff as well. And we will look forward to bringing this back in October at the joint meeting. So we have a number of other reports that are labeled FYI, and I've had no requests to pull any of them for discussion. Before I move on, is there any other report that people wish to comment on or question? Then we're on to item 9, items for staff review.
Yes, I have that the board requested feedback on any changes to the ballot notices. In addition to that, we have that feedback would be provided potentially at the OOC regarding item 7B, feedback from the consultant on the budget review. And that is all I have.
Thank you very much. We are now on to good of the order. Bonnie, would you please call people for good of the order?
Yes, Mr. Knox.
Good morning. Appreciate the feedback on the discussion we just had. Mr. Oakham, thank you for your positive comments. Wish everybody well. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Santos.
Mr. Santos, you're muted.
Okay, thank you. The only comment I have is with regards to the scheduling of the committees. For example, this morning, I believe, I could be wrong, we could have been able to schedule both committees before 9 o'clock, even if he has to spill over a little bit into the 9 a.m. hour. But there's something to think about. That's how we do it on the Board of Investments. All committees meet early in the morning. So just something for the staff to consider in terms of scheduling on the chairs. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Oakham.
Yeah, let me concur with Herman. If we're going to start at 8 o'clock, I don't think we need a 45-minute break. So I think what we should think about is starting the general meeting at 8 and the committee meetings after. This way we will not waste 45 minutes. So
Mr. Oakham, are you done or you're muted, sir?
only thing I just don't want breaks. So I think when you guys set up the meetings, we start with the general meeting and then have the committee meetings afterwards, which I think it'll make, we'd be far ahead now if we hadn't had to wait for 45 minutes. And I know it was the agenda that was published. So let's think about that one.
Thank you, Mr. Moore.
I don't have anything further to add to those two comments, which are very important. I would add that term limits too, to our discussion of chairs.
Okay, thank you. Making a note of that. Okay, Mr. Kehoe.
Thank you. Term limits would be automatically included because you would reset down to 0. So you wouldn't have an opportunity to do 2 years in a row. So I think that is resolved in the point. I'm still trying to figure out what happened to August since we're in September already. That just flew by. But just to add on the comments, the original motion that we had agreed for this test period was to do the Insurance Legislative Benefits Committee in the morning and then OOC in the afternoon. Clearly, we had plenty of time to do another one, so I'm definitely in agreement of the comments. I think all that is just a proper notice. If we noticed all the committees at 8 o'clock and then we had the regular board meeting at 9, then that solves that issue. That's my only comment on that, and looking forward to the rest of the meeting.
Thank you, Mr. Harris.
I just want to thank everyone that was involved in this previous discussion. I think there was a lot of really good work went into that, a lot of good thought, and I think it'd probably be something that would be very healthy for this organization to strongly consider moving forward. And although I don't like meetings starting at 8 o'clock, I do have a headlight and a reflective vest, so I can run on the dark. So I'll be here at 8 o'clock for however many committee meetings you want. I almost feel like this is sort of like rearranging the deck chairs on the Titanic. I thought we were kind of looking at reducing meetings. We aren't reducing any meetings. We're just shuffling them around. We haven't reduced anything. But anyway, I'll be happy to be here at 8 o'clock. And I agree it'd be better to have them stacked one after the other than have a 45-minute break in between the first committee meeting and the beginning of the board of retirement meeting. But that's it. Thank you.
Ms. Gray.
Well, I appreciate everyone's comments. I haven't quite recovered from our 8 o'clock meeting, considering that I had to use a headlamp to get from my bed to the shower to the computer and rush through. However, I know that this is a trial run for efficiency by combining the meetings. I would only note that last month, I think we would have really been, we ended so late. Mr. Harris and I were just dying, and Mr. Robbins. You know, maybe it's from the old folks, I don't know. But I think that we are on the right track with respect to being efficient about our time that we spend. But efficiency should not do away with our dedication, our review, and the intensity with which we give each of our cases, the issues before us. That is the most important thing to me, that we fulfill our fiduciary duties to our members and to the fund. And with that, I hope everyone has a wonderful weekend and a happy holiday, because it's Labor Day, no more white shoes.
Thank you, JJ Popovich.
I have nothing at this time. Thank you.
Thank you, Louis Lugo.
No, I just want to appreciate Trustee Kehoe's comments regarding, you know, our budget, and I just want to reaffirm that the leadership team takes stewardship extremely seriously, and we're all, you know, we have budget backgrounds, and we want to make sure that, you know, we provide a budget solution, an enterprise solution, and I think we do have talented staff that understand budget, but in terms of the resources that they have to really have a full enterprise solution, I think that's what we're looking for. So I appreciate Trustee Kehoe's comments and look forward to bringing that information back to OOC. So thank you. Wish everyone well.
Thank you, Chief Counsel Stephen Rice.
Thank you. Nothing to add. Good morning.
Thank you, Santos Kryman.
Nothing to add. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair Bernstein.
Thank you. First of all, I just want to specifically thank, if I didn't before, Mr. Liu, who was very involved in drafting the proposals for the rotational considerations. He did a really good job on that. And, you know, as a long-term appointed trustee who every 4 years usually shows up new, I do not relish the experience of literally like arriving for a contentious vote. The idea of this board being receptive to dismantling a system that I don't think works very well, and just acknowledging that any of us who are here for a period of time have the skills and capacity to lead is very encouraging. I thought it was a great discussion, and I really appreciated everything everyone said and added, and I look forward to seeing where it goes in October. I've heard the comments about the meetings. I will say from 8:15 to 9 o'clock, I sat at the exact computer that I'm sitting at now and got a lot of work done. It did not actually harm me very much. I got bills paid and some calls returned, but I do think we can agendize both of the committee meetings for 8 o'clock. And although I'm very fond of Mr. Robbins, as we all know, I think the problem really is that Ms. Gray just runs too tight and efficient a meeting. And I think when we get back to Mr. Robbins, the chatter will go on longer and the problem will diminish. That was a joke in case it wasn't clear. I just also want to thank everyone for being here. I'm kind of pleased that it's 10:08 and we're good of the order. I think this is going okay. So that being said, we need to go into executive session. I'm sorry, yeah, into closed session before executive session. Would people like 5 minutes to refill coffee cups and stretch?
Yes.
Let's take a staff, do we need more than 5 minutes to do that?
5 minutes is fine.
Let's take a 5-minute break.